Africa, Africa, Africa. For you to understand the colonial era in Africa, there is the need to properly analyze developments that led to the European control of Africa for a period of time. If you're watching us for the very first time, please subscribe to our channel. Click on the notification icon so that anytime we drop a new content, you will be one of the earliest persons to be notified. We also beg you to share our content in order for it to reach other people. A lot of persons have asked questions like, why did Africans allow Europeans to conquer them? Why did Africans allow themselves to be conquered by the Europeans? The reality was that Africans did not open their arms and allow themselves to be subjugated by Europeans. Africa as a continent is known as a place where visitors are welcomed with open arms. They never thought that the visitors they welcomed had different intentions. It was a bit late for African political units before they realized that the major intentions of the Europeans were not actually so positive. Although one can say that the reality of the European subjugation of Africa were characterized by some developmental factors. The Europeans took time to study Africa in order to know better ways to subjugate territories in Africa, and as well to take over such territories. Europeans used several methods to bring African states, kingdoms, empires, and non-centralized units under colonial control. These methods include outright military conquests, threat of the use of force, tricks and treachery, signings of very unacceptable treaties of protection that were basically not understood by African leaders. This was because of the fact that most of the contents of these treaties were written and documented in European languages. The Europeans raised armies from outside and from within Africa. They recruited soldiers from West Indies, as in the case of the conquest of the Ashanti Empire. They made use of disagreements within African continents to raise soldiers from within Africa. For instance, in the case where you have a very strong empire that was a bit brutal to its weak neighbors, you will agree that some of the conquered weak neighbors we are not really happy with the powerful empire. So in a bid to raise soldiers to handle the powerful empire, Europeans looked towards the weak and unhappy neighbors. One of the earliest European military activity in Africa were the expeditions carried out by the Portuguese in the East African region. The intentions of the Portuguese were to enforce and strengthen their naval power within the East African region in order to have strong influence around the India axis. This made the Portuguese to target some East African coastal cities like Sofala, Kiwa, Mombasa, and Mozambique, where they established their headquarters. As an extension of the French War of the Revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded and conquered Egypt in 1799. The actions of the Portuguese encouraged other Europeans to start up military expeditions in Africa. The conquest of Egypt by Napoleon Bonaparte was supposed to be used to break the backbone of the British commercial interests. But Napoleon's 2-year stay showed that the French intended to colonize the region. The above are two instances of the use of force to acquire African territories before the era of the Scramble for and subsequent partition of Africa. After the possession of African lands and the issue of legitimization, which was done in Berlin Conference of 1885, the colonization power or the colonization reality became the activity of the day. The Berlin Conference of 1885 gave European powers, European nations, the clear path to strongly conquer some other parts of Africa. This was because in the Berlin Conference, Africans were not allowed to participate. They didn't even know Africans were not allowed to participate. Africans didn't even know the major focus or the major intentions and major outcome of such conference. They only woke up to see the Europeans were cooperating with each other towards properly subjugating most territories in Africa. Unfortunately, it was not a good time for Africa or African development, as Africa lost most of her territories to the control of European nations. Well, that is the reality of the subjugation, occupation of Africa. That was not to say that there were no resistance. There were some resistance put up by Africans in many parts of Africa. Some were successful, many were not successful. Some were brutally squashed, and a lot of persons lost their lives. Please subscribe to our channel if you are watching us for the very first time, and share our content. We will appreciate your support in any way you can.